short.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه. صلاة وسلاما عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Last Friday we were talking about hadith which is in Sunan Abu Dawud, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talking about the fitnas to come, and mainly in that hadith, in the last three fitnas before the Dajjal. Then we'll come back to that, and as I mentioned, we're going to relate all of this to Imam Husain AS, and the steps that he took, which eventually led him to Karbala. Today is the 20th of Dhul Hajj, so I'm going to also relate this to events on the 18th of Dhul Hajj. So if you remember the ending of that hadith, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he talks about the fitna of Duhima, and he says that this fitna will not leave anyone from this nation without striking him with a slap. And when it will be said that it is ended, it will be prolonged. And a man will wake up in the morning a believer and will become an unbeliever by the evening. Until the people will be divided, where into two camps, where you have one group of believers with no hypocrisy therein, and another group of hypocrites with no belief therein. And then he says, and when that happens, then prepare yourself, or when that happens, then expect Dajjal either that day or the next. So this is the ending of the hadith, which is related to the times that we're in. And we went over that last week, so I'm not going to go over that again today. But if we look at what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us, one is he says that there will be no one who will not be touched by this fitna. So everybody at some level will be affected by it. And we see that today, where all the things that are going on, even if they don't get someone directly, then they get him through the family, whether the children or the extended family or somebody. So they're affected, everybody is affected one way or the other. And it's one of those things that will be, it will feel like it's never ending. And this is what we're seeing today. One turmoil comes and you expect, it's ending, and then something else comes. You expect, now you're going to have some time, some peace, and immediately something else happens. And we see this throughout the world. And I don't have to give direct examples, but we look at what's going on in Philistine, which has been an ongoing issue for the past century. We look at what's going on in Sudan right now, which has been ongoing for decades in the reality. Kashmir, 70 years plus. Throughout the Muslim world, even the puppets that are sitting and ruling over us, if you look at them, they have no iman. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that Qiyamah will not come until Lat and Uzza are worshipped again in this land. And we see that already happening. Biggest stone mandir in the world is in Dubai. The land that is destroying masajid, and they're expected to destroy 30,000 masjids this year. They are being given their worship places in Muslim land. And people still think that their ideology is correct. This is also part of the fitna. This is that part where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, that the iman will be so weak, so shaky, that the man, he wakes up as a believer, and by the afternoon, his iman is gone. And the worst thing, because if you look at the next part of the statement, he talks about hypocrisy. So the iman is gone, and the person doesn't even know it. Because he's adhering to an ideology in which at some level they question the authority of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with complete authority, to the extent that even foundational rules will be broken for him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And yet they challenge his authority. And don't challenge it in the sense that, oh, make it very obvious, but just subtle things. So that connection between the people and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is somehow weakened. And so again, you have this one person, and not just one person, you have many people who will wake up as believers, and by the afternoon they will have no belief. And then you have these two camps. And the smaller one will be the one with belief and no hypocrisy. The larger one will be the one with the hypocrisy and no belief. And for people who say, oh, you need to follow the Jama'ah, well, that's going to be the larger Jama'ah. And we see this again even in households. Brothers one way, other brothers another way. Parents one way, the children another way. Exactly as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has described it. And this is what we're seeing in front of us. But history repeats itself. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us the problems, he also told us the solutions. If we choose to ignore the solutions, that's our problem. As far as the solutions, he says that I'm leaving two very heavy things behind. And the Sahih Hadith, which is in Sahih Muslim, is what? Is the Quran, the Book of Allah, and Itrat Ahl Bayti. The more famous hadith, which didn't become famous until after 700 years after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because certain people had an agenda that they wanted to push, because they wanted to make people forget Ahlul Bayt, is the Quran and the Sunnah. But the hadith is weak, even though the meaning is correct. But the problem is they define the Sunnah as something separate from Ahlul Bayt. And he says if you adhere to these two things, then you will never be led astray. And this gets back to وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hablillah, according to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the book of Allah. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also told us that the book of Allah will never be separated from Ahlul Bayt. These two will never be separated. So if we want to understand the book of Allah, then we have to see the actions of Ahlul Bayt, such as the actions of Imam Husain AS in Karbala. But again, that's another point that I said we will come to eventually, inshallah. But regarding the 18th of Dhul Hajj, and for those who are in Sunday class, this is a review. But two major things happened on the 18th of Dhul Hajj. One, as Rasulullah SAW is returning from his Hajj, and they stop at Ghadir Khum, this oasis of Ghadir, and he makes this announcement after some people had complained against Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh. And long story short, he has everyone gathered, and he brings Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh, and he holds his hand, and he makes the announcement, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. That for whomsoever I am his mawla, then Ali is also his mawla. Whoever accepts me as mawla has to accept Ali as mawla. And the way we accept Rasulullah as mawla, we have to accept Ali as mawla in that sense, as our leader, our master, our guide. And this hadith is the most mutawatir hadith of any hadith. More than 30 different companions have narrated it. It is the only hadith which is narrated by all 10 Ashara Mubashara in various chains, various forms. Again, that connection to Ahlul Bayt, that becomes a protection for the believers. But we also, on the 18th of Dhul Hajj, we see the martyrdom of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. And we see the ones who are protecting him, the ones who come to his aid are who? Are Ahlul Bayt. Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh. And his two sons, Imam Husain and Imam Husain alayhimus salam. And the ones who would protect him or defend his honor even later would be who? You have various criticisms of Sayyidina Uthman. And whenever someone criticized him in front of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh, what did he say? He would chastise the criticizer, and he would say, if I were there, I would do the same thing. But the difference in those fitnas in the past were that they had an end, as compared to what we're living now. You know, the fitna would come, it would be dealt with, and then you would have a time of ease, at least away from the fitna. And the greatest fitna is the one in which you lose your iman. You know, the physical fitnas, they come and go. And this is why this one is so severe. Again, the man wakes up in the morning a believer, and by the afternoon he has no iman. He is a disbeliever. Even though when we look at the fitna during the last 6 years of the Khilafah of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, that fitna then continued on. The whole Khilafah of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh. But you still had ways of protecting your iman that were very obvious. And the iman of the common man was still intact. But in today's fitna, everybody is wishy-washy. Certain points is very good on, and then you see other points where there's just total disregard. And when we come to hypocrisy, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also, Ali Rada is given many honors. And one of the honors that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave to Ali, karamallahu wajh, is that he is that distinction between belief and hypocrisy. That only a believer will love him, and only a disbeliever will have animosity against him. Animosity comes in various forms. Animosity isn't simply that I say something against him. Animosity is also when somebody else is saying something that defends or raises his ranks, then I feel defensive. I feel upset. And that's what we see today amongst those who claim to be Ahl Sunnah. The term Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the origins of the term are, of course, from the Sunnah, from the Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says about Sayyidina Imam Husain AS, Inna ibni hadha sayyidun, that this son of mine is the master of men, is your master. Because of him, two large groups will reconcile. Two large groups of Muslims will reconcile. That reconciliation between the party of Imam Husain al-Islam and the party of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, that is Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But if you look at even the party that came against Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh, so if I look at the party of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, multiple narrations where you have Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu and various other companions in front of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, praising and reciting the praises of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh. And all he can do is acknowledge it. He cannot deny any of them. He does not deny any of them. These days, you start praising Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh, and as I said, suddenly, everybody's uneasy. And then it is a quick label of, he's Shia. And brothers are witness that we are accused of being Shia. Simply because we have the names of Ahlul Bayt hung up, or we speak about them not even the way they should be spoken about. We cannot do honor to their status. They are from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's very interesting. If I look at all of the great Imams, they were all accused of being Shia. Imam Abu Hanifa, accused of being Shia. That is eventually why he's martyred. Why they jailed him, why they whipped him in the well, and then eventually freed him and poisoned him so that they couldn't be blamed, because of his support for Ahlul Bayt. That's the only reason. He supported Imam Zaid. Not only supported Imam Zaid, he gave Imam Zaid 30,000 dirham at a time in which you could buy a cow for 3 dirham. He gives him 30,000 dirham to equip his army to go and fight against Hisham bin Abdul Malik. And then later he supports Imam Muhammad Nafs Zakiyah. So Imam Zaid is the son of Imam Zain al-Abidin. Imam Muhammad Nafs Zakiyah is the son of Abdullah Med, who's the son of Muhassan Muthanna, who is the son of Imam Hassan. He supports him. Imam Malik, accused of being Shia, because of his support for Imam Muhammad Nafs Zakiyah. Imam Shafi'i has to leave Makkah and go to Kufa, and then from Kufa he has to leave Kufa and go to Egypt. Why did he go to Egypt? Because he's being accused of being Shia by the government. Not just any Shia, he's being accused of being a Rawafid, of being Rafidi. And he says, these are people who didn't hide their love for Ahlul Bayt, no matter what they were accused of. So Imam Shafi'i, he says openly, he says, if loving Ahlul Bayt means that I'm Shia, or means that I'm Rafzi, then I am the greater Rafzi. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, same thing. So the reality is, if someone claiming to be Sunni is not accused of being Shia, then he doesn't love Ahlul Bayt like he should love Ahlul Bayt. So again, coming back to the fitna. Again, Rasulullah in the end, he says what? 2 groups. One with belief and no hypocrisy, one with hypocrisy and no belief. The way authorities or powers to be, or powers that think they have authority, when they go to an extreme, they don't go to an extreme suddenly. You have to prepare the waters, prepare the landscape, to be able to get people to be complicit in whatever you're doing. Again, what is going on in Muslim lands is not something that just happened overnight, that everything was good and then suddenly overnight you got all these issues. They prepared the situation. They desensitized people. Same thing like here. Things that were an abomination 20 years ago are now normal. And if you say something against them, then you're the one who's the problem. Again, that didn't happen overnight. This is something that was prepared over time. You get people, you keep putting things in people's faces subtly. They use the media, they use various agendas or various methods in order to do this. So Yazid becoming king, or his ability to become the king, again, was not something that happened overnight. People slowly were desensitized to things. And we're talking about a time period which is the time period of the companions. Rasulullah SAW said the Khilafah is for 30 years. So 40 Hijri, the Khilafah ends. Then he said will come the cruel monarchy. We see that. That ended, of course, with the Ottomans. Then he said the age of tyrants, which is what we are in now. And then Mahdi. But when I look at the time period of the companions, the last companion, Abu Tufal, Amr bin Wathla, radiallahu anhu, he passed away 106 Hijri. Karbala happens the beginning of 61 Hijri. So we're talking about in the middle of the age of the companions, even though most of the very close companions of Rasulullah have already passed by this time. But you still have companions. And this is why when Imam Husain AS will arrive in Karbala, he will go before the opposing armies day after day, multiple times a day, and tell them, he says, you know who I am, and if you don't know who I am, there are people amongst you. I mean, you could go and ask who I am. He tells them, don't ruin your hereafter for this. It's interesting, in every salat. And the army that came against him, these were not people who did not make salat. The army that came against him, you have hundreds of huffaz, 500 fuqaha. I mean, these are scholars. And the interesting thing is that every salat they say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. And yet they're coming against whom? The al of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is why he goes to them every day, multiple times a day, from the 2nd of Muharram until the 10th, telling them, you know who I am. And if you don't know who I am the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I am the only living grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are people amongst you who know who I am. So go and ask. You have great companions such as Anas bin Malik, who was still alive at that time. So go and ask him. But again, they didn't get to that point overnight. That's what I want to emphasize. This is a long desensitization over years. To where now they come against him. Even after knowing who he is. This is where the love of the dunya, you learn to justify things and not just things, justify anything for the love of the dunya. Just like these days, and this is from the time of Banu Umayyah, where, you can't say anything against the ruler, doesn't matter who he is, doesn't matter what he's doing. This is not the ideology of those who are close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They understood what he said. They understood what it meant. And they showed us in practice. But again, if we choose to ignore it, then that's our problem. So I'll end here today. We'll continue next week, inshallah. Again, trying to make that connection between the fitness that we are living through today and the solution in the lives of Ahlul Bayt. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to understand. And may He fill our hearts with His true love and the true love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family and companions and all of those whom they love. Those who have not made sunnah, go and make sunnah.